In part 2 of this series of getting this old motor started, we're going to look at the starter and some of the components, some of the common things that can go wrong when you're trying to get your motor started. Okay, usual disclaimer, I'm not a mechanic. I'm more or less just guessing at these things, but I am a novice, and so if you're a novice too, I'm sort of facing the same things that you are, which sometimes can be helpful. So obviously this is the starter, and power for the starter comes in here. The battery cable is right here, and it goes in here, and the ground goes to the block here, and the red wire, which is under this white sheet, goes into the top of what is the starter relay or the starter solenoid here, and then it comes out of the solenoid here and then goes into the starter here. Along the line you can run into problems all the way from obviously the battery to the connections to the solenoid to a starter motor being bad and all sorts of things. And there's some things you can do to try to eliminate some problems. Signal, when it gets a charge from the yellow and orange, it will pull a little plunger down in here. So this is a pretty low amperage wire, but it's enough to pull this magnet down here, which will bridge some copper contacts underneath here and allow this big amperage battery power to go straight through to the starter solenoid. That just so you don't have to run this big massive power through the key. You run just you know, a low amperage, I'm going to call it a signal wire. It's not really, it's positive, and it goes through the starter solenoid. So the first thing I'm going to check though, because you saw it's not turning over, is let's check the battery, because maybe your battery's bad. Okay, so I have one of these small, I don't think they're lithium ion, I think they're lithium polymer boost packs, which work great. It's what I used to start my other boat. And then I'm going to take our starter relay power, which is this yellow and orange, and if I touch it on there, it's going to pull that solenoid down, and let's see if there's any change. Now, same deal. So, no, it's not the battery, so let's keep going. Okay, so if I want to cut everything out and just get right to the starter, you can put positive right on, positive terminal for the starter, and then you're going to put your ground to ground somewhere that's not going to start spinning. And what this does then is it cuts out everything, cuts out maybe dirty battery cable terminals, corroded battery cables, a bad solenoid. So let's see if that makes a difference, and then we can work our way back from there. So, okay, you can see it does turn over, so there's nothing wrong with this starter, there's nothing wrong with this battery. So now the question is, maybe is it the solenoid? Okay, what I've done now is I hooked the positive terminal of this, I guess the solenoid, so that's opposite where the starter is, so pre-solenoid, I guess, if you will, to the positive battery jumper cable. I've got my black one hooked to ground. Now I'm going to find my, so this is my basically my key switch here, this yellow and red. We're going to touch this to the positive cable, and it'll send power through there and through this solenoid, and if it turns over now, we know the solenoid's okay. Well, okay, so that seems to work just fine. So our solenoid's fine. So if we know that if we have power here and we switch the solenoid on, it works just fine. But if we're on the other end of this cable, which is the battery cable, we're not getting anything. I guess there's one other thing. We could test the, let me do this. I'm going to test the ground line by hooking the hooking the jumper up to the other end of the ground line. Okay, so I've got positive to the top of the starter solenoid. I've got negative through the battery terminal here. Now, I've got my hand on this positive one because you don't want that flopping around, because if that hits anything, it's going to probably short out, spark, or do something bad. So I've got to hold that. A little more tricky to hold everything with two hands here. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this, because I got to get the key switch onto that positive right now. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Oh! Just about dropped my battery pack in the lake. Not great to have to work over the lake, but I assume that's pretty much what most people are going to be doing anyway, so it's alright. Alright, so know that the ground cable's fine. So I think the only thing left is a problem somewhere between where this white wire is connected here and it comes out at the battery cables. So I mean, it looks fine, but I am gonna undo this battery cable, cut it off, strip it back, clean it up, and see if that makes a difference. You know, sometimes there's two things wrong which exponentially make it more difficult. So I've got this, I've replaced this terminal, and you can see when I do it, it pretty much does the same thing as it did before. So when I get it hooked up to my boost pack though, okay, contact. Alright, so I'm gonna say that this new terminal and cutting back the wire bit, stripping it out, cleaning it up, has solved our starter problem. Now, I guess the next step is to see if we are getting spark at the spark plug. We'll go from there. See you next time.